Recently named Time's 100 most influential people in AI, and on a mission to solve Africa's data scarcity by building its environmental data infrastructure, it is an incredible honor to introduce our keynote speaker, founder and CEO of Amini, Kallot. She's had many accomplishments in her 10 plus years in the industry, including being named a top innovator by the World Economic Forum in 2023, a Business Insider Top 100 Business Transformer in 2020, and receiving the CES 2018 Best of Innovation Award by Consumer Technology Association. Today, Kate presents harmony between socioeconomic development and environmental protection, and how technological innovation and lifestyle changes support the creation of societies that are both economically dynamic and ecologically sustainable. I can think of no better person to set the tone of this year's summit. Please welcome Kate Kallot.
Thanks, Jess, and I'm very sorry I'm unable to be with you all today. I'm actually in Nairobi, where I'm based. But hi, everyone. I'm Kate Kallot, and I'm the founder and CEO of Amini. And today I'm going to talk about sustainable development of societies. So before we start, I wanted to put out a question to you. What if, imagine that the wealth of your country wasn't measured by its GDP, but by our natural capital? So then you would ask me, what is natural capital? Natural capital is everything that's around us. It's everything that is tied and related to the Earth's natural assets. We think about soil, we think about water, we think about any living animals out there, any living organism. All of these constitute our natural capital, such as, for example, the oceans. Did you know that Barbados had 434 times their land in ocean space? We often calling Barbados a small island development state, but in fact, it's a big ocean development state. Second is the land. Did you know that Africa represents 65% of the world's uncultivated fertile land? Today, we're all running through a food security crisis. We always call it a food and water security crisis, but there is still a lot of land that's uncultivated in Africa and extremely fertile. Same for biodiversity and forestry. Did you know that the Congo Basin makes up one of the most important wilderness areas left on Earth? 500 million acres of land, which is larger than the state of Alaska, and it stands at the world's second largest tropical forest after the Amazon. Now, last one, and the minerals. Did you know that Central African Republic, which is a country in the middle of Africa, has so much minerals that every time you step a foot on the soil, you have at least 4 different minerals under you? Now, let me ask you this. What if technology innovation was not measured by the new technology platform that you're building, but by the way you are applying technology into real-world challenges? Would you consider this to be an innovation? Or would you consider this to be an innovation? Now, we're going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to talk about my favorite topic. Africa. Africa is the last and largest emerging market opportunity. Think about Africa as Southeast Asia was 20 years ago. A couple of stats about Africa. 60% of the population are smallholder farmers. Africa represents 65% of the world's arable and cultivated land. I said it before, which becomes very important when it comes to food security. Most of the coffee you drink and most of the chocolate you eat actually comes from Africa. Today, Africa's population is extremely young. 60% of the population is under 25 years old. And by 2050, Africa will represent 1/4 of the entire world's population. 1/4 of all humans on this planet will be living on the African continent by 2050. It's a crazy opportunity, but it's also a crazy challenge. What are we going to do with young people? How can we get them to innovate? What are we going to do with all these unexploited resources? They have to be used or put to use in a way that's responsible and regenerative for both our people and our planet. We have today to move our relationships across the entire value chain from being extractive to being regenerative. And that is what sustainable development is. We have to protect our resources and our natural capital while ensuring people can live a life of dignity and prosperity. But how do we make it possible? Well, it all starts with data. You know that data is at the core of every major economic transformation. I mean, look what's happening in the world today, and the world getting crazy about ChatGPT. None of this will be possible without data to train your models, right? So data really, when you start collecting data, when you have access to data, access to high quality data, it has infinite possibilities. And it's also extremely true when we think about environmental data. But today, Africa is the most data scarce continent. And that data scarcity spans across many different types of data. Ground data, weather data. Africa only has 1/8 of the recommended weather station density by the World Meteorological Organization. But also space data. You think about geospatial data, that digital infrastructure we take for granted in other parts of the world, including satellites, for example, are not designed for Africa. And unfortunately, that data scarcity is impacting businesses because once you have data, you have transparency. Once you have transparency, you have trust, and trust accelerates investments and economic development. But that data scarcity is also impacting policymakers. Today, policymakers throughout the entire continent are struggling to draft policies that are adapted to the effect of climate change. Last but not least, that data scarcity is actually impacting the people. You know, I mentioned that 60% of the population in Africa are smallholder farmers. Today, only 20% of them have access to any kind of insurance. This is making them vulnerable to the effect of climate change, which is impacting economic development, livelihoods, food security. You can't really solve climate change if you don't solve for smallholder farming in Africa. But, you know, as I'm speaking about the continent, we can think that these are just issues that are proper to Africa, but it's not. It's not just for Africa, it's for our entire planet, because our entire planet is being fed by commodities that come from Africa. And that's where the opportunity is. The opportunity lies at the convergence of our talent, of data and AI, and of our natural capital. It's a time for us to converge those three and really innovate for both our people and our planet. This creates an interesting opportunity for the sustainable development of societies in Africa and other emerging markets, with some data and AI-driven solutions. And this is why at Amini, my company, we've decided to fix the African environmental data gap. We're building an environmental data infrastructure for Africa. Now, I mentioned that data has infinite possibilities. So let me give you an example. We generate data at a hyper-granular way at a farm level. We look at things such as crop health, water stress, soil health. We look at things such as flood, drought, temperature, humidity, weather, you name it. That data we collect at the farm level is used by an insurance company to provide agricultural insurance to smallholder farmers. That same data is used by a bank to provide access to financing or loans against assets to those same farmers. That same data, aggregated at a country level, is used by a government to better food security and increase food resilience and climate resilience as well. That same data is being used by a large corporate with a supply chain onto the continent to understand, to forecast their food production in the context of, like, for example, cocoa or coffee farming, but also reports into their regulatory obligations. But last and not least, don't forget that data is at the core of any decision making. That same data can be given back to the farmers to understand in a way that's digestible and understandable for them to be able to understand and make the best decision at their farm level. That's what we mean when we think about looking at data for infinite possibilities, but also innovating for human and natural capital at scale. That's really the core of what we do. We want to enable Africa to transform the world by empowering our ecosystem through data and fostering opportunities for a billion lives. So join us in our mission. Thank you.